This is the story of a blind boy named Kunon, who lives in a grand mansion of the Huglia kingdom with his family. He is old enough to understand language. He is told that his eyes will never work, a fact that confuses him more than it hurts, because he has never known sight and cannot grasp what he lacks. But as he grows older, he becomes curious and begins to question what it truly means to see. And when Kunon asks his father what sight is, he is given a simple answer. Seeing is the ability to recognize colors and shapes. But instead of satisfying him, the explanation leaves Kunon confused as he tries to imagine things he has never experienced, turning colors and shapes into empty ideas he cannot fully understand. In time, his father explains the reason for his blindness. Kunon bears a rare mark in his eyes known as the hero's scar, and he inherited it from their ancestor, Histor Huglia, the ancient hero of the kingdom. The mark is not a curse but a sign of their great bloodline, and his father tells him he should never feel ashamed of it. Despite this reassurance, Kunon becomes aware of how others see him. Servants whisper when they think he cannot hear, speaking of his condition with pity and calling his blindness a tragedy for a royal child. Kunon hears every word and struggles to understand why people feel sorrow for him over something that has always been his normal. Later that day, his magic instructor is due to arrive, and Kunon is led through the mansion by his maid, Iko, the person he relies on most. And as they make their way to the study room, Kunon questions the point of learning magic, wondering what use it could have for someone who will always need help to get around. Iko gently disagrees, telling him that wasting the gift he was born with would be a mistake. When they reach the study, his new tutor introduces herself as Jeannie and expresses her honor at the opportunity to teach him. The lesson begins soon after, and to everyone's surprise, Kunon succeeds on his very first attempt, effortlessly conjuring a small sphere of water. Unable to see what he has done, he asks for a description, and Jeannie tells him that the water floats in the air, shaped like a small ball roughly the size of an eyeball. That description triggers a sudden realization. Kunon begins to wonder if magic could someday allow him to create eyes of his own, ones capable of letting him perceive the world directly. The idea takes hold instantly, reshaping how he views his future. And from that moment on, Kunon clings to a single belief. With enough training, magic may one day allow him to understand colors and shapes just like everyone else. That same afternoon at lunch, Kunon feels a subtle yet meaningful shift when he becomes curious about what lies inside his sandwich and, for the first time, asks about its ingredients. Iko happily explains each component in careful detail. Describing textures and flavors, and preparing meals for him takes on new importance now that he wants to understand what he eats rather than consume it. After lunch, his etiquette instructor, Flora, arrives to read with him and asks which story he would like to hear, and Kunon immediately requests the tale of Histor Huglia. Flora hesitates, aware that Histor is the very hero tied to Kunon's blindness. But Iko notices the pause and reassures her with a confident gesture. Flora agrees to continue while asking Kunon to speak up if the story becomes too painful, a concern he calmly dismisses as he explains that he wants to know everything. So, the legend is told. Long ago, the champions of the world fought a brutal war against a demon lord, and Histor Huglia, the greatest warrior of his age, defeated that enemy at terrible cost. Histor survived but lost an arm and a leg, and in the generations that followed, some of his descendants were born missing limbs, eyes, or other parts of themselves. These children came to be known as bearers of the hero's scar. Kunon listens carefully, but he refuses to believe that his life is chained to an old tale of heroism or misfortune. He believes his life is his own, and that what matters is not legend or bloodline, but what he can achieve through his own effort. That resolve drives him into harsh training. He pushes his young body until the strain finally overwhelms him, and he collapses. Iko rushes to his side and brings him inside to rest, and when Kunon recovers, he understands that willpower means little if his body cannot endure his goal. He accepts that collapsing from overexertion is unacceptable, and that to wield magic for long periods, he must strengthen himself physically as well. Iko advises sword training to build stamina and muscle, along with eating more to support his growth, and firmly reminds him that progress must be steady, not reckless. Kunon makes his choice and begins training under the sword instructor Uro. The sessions are grueling, leaving him exhausted. But when the next magic lesson arrives, Jeannie meets him at the training field, and Uro steps aside. Jeannie watches Kunon's sword practice and remarks on how impressive it is. Kunon agrees, saying that strengthening his body matters as much as refining his spells. He explains that his goal demands great stamina, and he is ready to build it no matter how hard the road becomes. Jeannie has always known Kunon as a quiet and withdrawn child, difficult to read. But the moment she sees him now, she senses a clear change. The emptiness she once noticed is gone, replaced by steady purpose. She asks him to repeat the spell they practiced before. Kunon responds at once and summons 7 perfectly shaped spheres that float in the air together. Genie is left speechless, knowing she has taught him nothing new, and realizes that his growth comes entirely from his own relentless effort. That same afternoon, Princess Mirica, Kunon's fiancée, arrives at the mansion with unease in her heart. Kunon has always seemed distant and hard to approach, and though she understands their engagement exists for royal duty, the thought of a future bound to someone so closed off troubles her. When she meets him, she notices at once how different he is, speaking with warmth and confidence she has never seen before. Their conversation flows easily, and when Kunon shows her his progress in water magic, she is genuinely captivated. What she expects to be an awkward obligation becomes a pleasant day, and during the carriage ride home, her thoughts keep returning to the way Kunon speaks and smiles. And for the first time, she looks forward to their next meeting. Kunon reflects on their time together and realizes he has taken Mirica for granted. With renewed resolve, he seeks out Flora and asks her to teach him how to behave as a proper gentleman, one worthy of standing beside Mirica as her future husband. That night, Genie could not sleep, replaying the lesson again and again, unable to forget the sight of Kunon creating 7 water orbs at once, a feat she herself had never achieved. She understands that he has already mastered the foundations of water magic, and that there is little left for her to teach him at a basic level. Even so, Genie refuses to neglect her role and decides to change her approach. During their next lesson, she introduces a more advanced concept, explaining that water magic consists of distinct stages: creating water, suspending it, and maintaining its form. To demonstrate, she conjures 2 orbs, one steaming hot and the other frozen solid. She explains that true mastery comes from controlling the nature of the magic itself, which sets seasoned mages apart from beginners. Kunon listens intently and immediately tests the idea by filling a cup with magically created water, handing it to Iko and asking her to taste it. Iko takes a sip, pauses, and remarks that the water strangely tastes like apples. Although Genie keeps her composure, frustration burns beneath the surface as she realizes Kunon has once again grasped the concept almost instantly. That night, Kunon remains awake, continuing his training with unwavering focus as he works to understand the technique fully. He concentrates on imagining apples in precise detail, their shape, texture, and fragrance forming clearly in his mind, yet their colors remain beyond his imagination. Even then, Kunon refuses to give up and swears to keep trying for as long as it takes. The following morning at breakfast, Kunon attempts the technique again, conjuring a small water orb and carefully guiding it above the apples laid out on the table. His body suddenly stiffens and his eyes widen as something unfamiliar happens. When Iko rushes to his side and asks what is wrong, Kunon bursts out with uncontrollable excitement, declaring that he can see colors. Iko assumes at first that he must be imagining it, but her doubt vanishes when Kunon calmly identifies 2 green apples and 3 red ones in the bowl, realizes he is correct, and is overwhelmed by joy. Iko immediately hurries to Kunon's father to share the news, explaining that Kunon can now use magic to perceive color, and that the ability grows clearer the closer an object is, the better he understands its shape through touch. She adds that this has already allowed him to begin reading by tracing the ink on a page, and while he cannot yet recognize full words, she is confident that it will not take long. Kunon's father listens in stunned silence before pride swells in his chest, the realization settling in that his son's progress can no longer be dismissed as mere curiosity. The next morning, Kunon decides to surprise Genie by preparing a massive red water orb before she arrives, focusing intently as he shapes the spell. Without warning, his entire family suddenly appears, and the shock breaks his concentration, causing the red water to burst outward and drench both him and Iko from head to toe. The sight of Kunon soaked in red liquid sends his mother into a panic, and she screams before collapsing on the spot. Kunon stands frozen in confusion until Iko calmly explains that blood is red, and seeing her son covered in it must have been too much for her. His father immediately scolds him for causing the chaos, announces that Kunon's allowance will be cut for the next 2 months, and then turns to Iko to say that her wages will also be reduced for 3 months. Watching the entire incident from nearby, Genie realizes that Kunon's talent far exceeds what she first believed. A few days later, Kunon's father announces that the time has come for Kunon to attend school. Surprised, Kunon's brother, Ixio, points out that Kunon has never left the estate. Their father agrees but says this is exactly why Kunon must attend school, so he can face the outside world and learn to stand on his own. Ixio recalls a childhood memory of trying to guide Kunon outside, offering to hold his hand, only to trip and fall, frightening him. Shaking off the memory, Ixio assures their father that he will fully support Kunon. The next morning, Iko watches Kunon amuse himself by enchanting a bowl of water and pretending it is a fortune-telling tool. She plays along, asking if she is still young, and Kunon assures her she is still in her prime. When she asks about her future husband, Kunon replies that someone as beautiful as her will always have admirers. Flora observes their banter and briefly wonders if teaching Kunon to joke so freely was a mistake, but she cannot deny how much he has changed. During the lesson, Kunon continues joking easily, and although Flora worries he may be getting too smooth, she is relieved to see how much lighter and happier he has become. After the lesson, Iko escorts Kunon to meet his father and asks him to create warm water spheres to counter the cold. Kunon complies but feels uneasy about the late summons. Iko reassures him that he has done nothing wrong, joking about the red water explosion, and Kunon retorts that she encouraged it, though he admits it was fun. They reach the main estate, where the head butler, Balon, greets them, and Ixio soon appears and leads them to their father's room. On the way, Ixio asks if Kunon needs help navigating. But Kunon reminds him that he can now sense his surroundings. Ixio agrees, though his old memory still lingers. Inside the room, both parents are waiting, while Iko and Balon remain outside. Their father asks Kunon if he will attend a proper school, and Kunon immediately refuses, saying he does not want to burden others, is already pursuing an important goal at home, and questions whether skipping school truly matters. His father explains that although school is normally mandatory for nobles, he secured a special exemption from the king due to Kunon's condition. Kunon suspects favoritism, but his father dismisses this and urges him to focus. When Kunon tries to change the subject by asking to have his allowance restored, the discussion turns heated until his mother intervenes. Their father then explains that this decision also concerns Mirika, noting that nobles who neglect their duties are criticized, and that if Mirika married someone seen as uneducated, that criticism would fall on her as well. These words weigh heavily on Kunon, and after thinking it over, he reluctantly agrees to attend school. He is reassured when his father says full-time attendance is unnecessary, and that Kunon only needs to take the annual advancement exams. Passing 5 exams will allow him to graduate, which lifts his spirits somewhat. Ixio adds that he and Mirika are upperclassmen and will help Kunon adjust. Their mother becomes excited about preparing Kunon's uniform and leaves with Iko to take his measurements. Ixio follows, but their father stops him and warns him that some nobles may trouble Kunon and Mirika. Now Ixio understands and promises to stay alert and protect his brother. The next morning, Kunon tells Mirika that he will enroll, and she is immediately pleased at the thought of spending more time together. Kunon admits he feels nervous about entering a new place, but Mirika reassures him that she will look after him. He worries about trouble from her admirers, and when he asks if she is truly popular, she proudly says that 5 boys have confessed to her, leaving Kunon sighing as he accepts that jealousy will follow him. Soon after, Kunon changes into his uniform for his first day, and as he heads for the carriage, Iko praises how handsome he looks, and Kunon replies smugly before climbing inside. Before departure, he casts a water spell that coats the wheels in a soft gel, and the carriage sets off for the city. Along the way, Ixio notices how smoothly it rides over the rough road, and Kunon explains that the spell absorbs the impact, so no one suffers back pain, briefly wondering if becoming a magical technician might suit him. Ixio asks if Kunon feels nervous, but Kunon calmly says he is far stronger than before. He thanks Ixio for his years of support and apologizes for being a burden during the worst of his condition, urging him to release his guilt over their childhood accident. Though surprised, Ixio listens as Kunon insists that the past no longer defines him and that he will keep moving forward no matter how hard the path becomes. Ixio smiles at how much his brother has grown until Kunon suddenly declares that he plans to live longer than the world itself to enjoy life, leaving Ixio stunned and wondering if Iko's influence is to blame. They reach the school gates, and Ixio is again impressed by Kunon's ability to sense those around him, and the carriage stops at the entrance. Kunon steps out, and Mirika rushes to greet him. He immediately praises her beauty so earnestly that she laughs and teases him back, leaving Ixio speechless at how naturally Kunon banters. When Mirika moves to lead him inside, Kunon pauses to listen to the many voices filling the academy. Though the noise surrounds him, he steadies himself, senses each presence, and realizes he is ready to be here. He takes a slow breath, offers Mirika his hand, and jokingly asks her to escort him like a dainty maiden, making her laugh as she leads him inside. In a quiet corner of the academy, Professor Cast waits for her new student, growing uneasy when he does not arrive. Knowing Kunon is the son of a marquis only worsens her anxiety, and she wonders if she is fit to teach someone of his rank. Her thoughts break when a group of girls squeals at the arrival of a striking student, and she freezes as Kunon walks past with his fiancée clinging to his arm. She hurries to introduce herself as his instructor, but Kunon greets her in an overly graceful manner, saying he is merely playing the part of a refined lady. She is left stunned until the bell rings, ending the awkward exchange. Mirika and Ixio take their leave, and Professor Cast watches them go, realizing she may be dealing with an unusually troublesome student. Nearby, several students whisper that Kunon bears the hero's scar, which immediately irritates Prince Lyle. His followers hastily cover their admiration with clumsy insults. Lyle snaps at them before storming off with his temper clear. Professor Cast then prepares a private room for Kunon's advancement exam and asks if he understands the basics, receiving a nod. She explains that although exams are usually spaced far apart, Kunon has permission to take his early, arranged by his father through the king. Kunon comments that his father and the king are close, but admits that the favoritism unsettles him and apologizes for the pressure his status places on the school. When Professor Cast ignores this, Kunon vents his frustration with noble politics until she cuts him off and begs him not to involve her. She finally hands him the exam papers. Later, Professor Cast reviews his completed exam, expecting a mess, and is stunned to find he has earned perfect marks. Kunon heads to lunch with Mirika. Prince Lyle and his entourage block their way. Lyle calls out to Mirika, making her visibly uneasy, and Kunon steps forward to face him. Ixio arrives behind them and freezes when he sees a noble confronting his brother. Lyle mocks Kunon for being blind and engaged to Mirika, leaving her unable to speak against her brother. Kunon notices and decides Lyle must be dealt with. Ixio tries to calm things, but Lyle orders him to back off. Kunon then secretly casts a spell, drawing moisture from the air, and nearby drinks into Lyle's trousers. He points out the spreading stain, and the area falls silent before gasps erupt. Lyle panics, insists he did not wet himself, and flees in humiliation. Ixio asks Kunon if he caused it, and Kunon shrugs and pretends to be innocent. The three finally sit down to eat, and Kunon asks who the rude noble was. Mirika quietly says it was her older brother. Kunon feels for her, wonders why someone would treat his sister so cruelly, and thanks Ixio for always being a good brother. Ixio smiles stiffly, panicking as he realizes Kunon has humiliated a royal in public. Mirika tries to dismiss it, but Ixio senses trouble ahead, while elsewhere, Lyle storms through the academy, burning with anger.
And that is it for today. If you enjoyed this recap, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and feel free to write whatever you want in the comments section. Thank you for watching.